Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Linode. You can build it on Linode. Get started today with $100 in free credit for MacVoices listeners and viewers at linode.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it seems like we're all going through a lot of updates. We have the iOS 14 for and iPadOS 14 for our phone and iPad. We have watchOS 7. We're coming up to Big Sur. So there's a lot going on, and the Take Control folks are rolling out books constantly to help us get everything we can out of this. This time, I've got Mr. Jeff Carlson back to talk about the latest update to his Take Control of Apple Watch book. Jeff, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
It is always great to be here. And you're right. I think the Take Control authors are probably all feeling like maybe at the beginning of the year we'll get to sleep again.
Yeah, it does. Apple does this. And of course, what I think a lot of us forget is all of a sudden, it used to be we had macOS to worry about. Then we started getting the iPhone. Then we got the iPadOS. And by the way, there's tvOS and watchOS and all these different operating systems that all require updates. And usually with updates comes occasionally some issues, but usually new features, new capabilities. And after a while, it gets a little tough to keep up.
It does. Well, and especially Apple kind of threw everyone a curve this year because, it got more news on the developer side. By them, basically, they announced, the new Apple Watch Series 6, but then they also kind of mentioned, here's iOS 14 and watchOS 7, and they're available tomorrow. And all the developers freaked out because, normally Apple says, okay, it'll be ready in like a week. Then they get the final shipping version and they can test their apps and, have like that little bit of a buffer to make sure that things work. And here Apple was just like, and it's out tomorrow. And so, it's not exactly the same as what developers faced, but, those of us who are doing books and we want to have things come out, as soon as possible toward the release of whatever we're writing about, suddenly I think everybody in Take Control land, like, the big red sirens, the red lights were flashing, the klaxons were going, and like, oh, we got to get this out even faster. So, which is why, I'm actually really kind of proud because we're recording this like a full week, maybe 2 weeks after the release of watchOS 7, and like Apple, the Series 6 watches are, I think a lot of them shipped last week. That's when I got mine. I was supposed to get it this week. It showed up early, and so there's just that everybody's on this fast treadmill and we're trying to get things out because, this is when people are most interested.
Well, and as I said when we started, not just interested and excited, but also if you want to get the most out of both the new hardware and software. You mentioned the Series 6 watch, so now we have the new monitoring capabilities. And so, it seems like there's always something new to learn. And in fact, I was asking you about a feature that I just found pre-show, and you said, no, that was last time. It's like, darn, how did I not know about that? It's just one of those things, that I set up a watch, probably like my iPhone and my iPad. You set them up and you don't play with them constantly until there's a reason to. And usually that is a new version of the OS. That's when you say, oh, what's new? And sometimes you go in and find things that were already there. You just, at the time, it didn't apply to you.
Oh, absolutely. That's really the reason when I first wrote my first Apple Watch book, which was a crash course, we released it before the very first watch actually came out. So it had a lot about, what we know then, and then it was updated quickly. But I went from owning what was eventually called a Series 0, so the original watch, and I didn't upgrade to a 2 or a 3 until the Watch 4 came out, and for kind of that same reason, like, okay, I've written about it, I've covered all the stuff, but in my like day-to-day life, like I'm kind of covered. I know what it can do. And then, watchOS 6 came out. watchOS 7 has now come out, and I ordered the Series 6 watch. And then you're like, oh, right, I can do all this. And like this is when your brain is sparked to learn all this new stuff because, we're all busy. We all have stuff to do. And I think gone are the days when someone's just going to be like, I've got nothing else to do today. What is my watch? What can I do with my watch? I mean, maybe there are definitely people that are out there like that. But if something works, then you move on to something else.
Right.
And so this is a really good opportunity to say, oh, all right, well, what else can this thing do? Because it turns out, and I can say this after having now, written this book, massively updating it so it's now take control of your Apple Watch instead of the crash course. And now for watchOS 7, like it does a lot, and it does kind of more than I remembered. And I even wrote a book about it, 6 months ago. So it's that kind of conundrum.
Okay, so instead of saying instead of going down a list of new features, let's take a different approach. What are some of your favorite new features, or the favorite new implementations, and let's talk about it if we can through the eyes of Apple Watch 6 and watchOS 7.
Yeah. So this one kind of surprised me because it's not something that I really thought that I had any need for, and that's the new sleep feature. There's a sleep app, and it's also tied into the health app on your iPhone. You can actually take advantage of it on your iPhone, even if you don't have a watch. But if you have a watch, it's a lot better. And basically, what it allows you to do is you wear your watch at night, and based on your movement, what the accelerometer picks up, and based on it also like periodically checks your heart rate, and the watch can figure out whether you're asleep, and to some degree like how well you're sleeping, and so then it just records that all night, and it gives you data that you can work on. So if you are a fitful sleeper, then you get an idea of, okay, I wake up every morning at 2:00 or what have you. The reason why it didn't really seem important to me, and I'm just going to kind of knock on wood here, I tend to be a pretty solid sleeper, so it's never been something that I've really wanted to know about. And there have also been other sleep apps that will do this. So, excuse me. It's not like sleep is a brand new thing. It's kind of the Apple thing where it's like, hey, a bunch of people did this, and now Apple has their own implementation. But there are a couple interesting things about it. So one of them is, it'll record all that data. And if if you're a data geek, it's kind of fun to see. But it has an overall experience that has surprised me. So part of getting a good night's sleep, scientists tell us, is to be consistent about it. Go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, let your body kind of develop that rhythm. If you're sort of going to bed late and then going to bed early and sleeping in and not sleeping in, like that can throw some people off. And so it has this whole wind down sequence that you can basically set up that says, okay, I want to go to bed at 10 p.m. and I want to wake up at 6 a.m. and I want to give myself 30 minutes to wind down. And so the watch and the phone will pop up and say, hey, wind down is starting. It's time to think about getting ready for bed. And if you want to stick with that, there are things you can do, like you can actually assign shortcuts that will say, when wind down starts, open my calendar app so that I can make sure I got everything done today, or to look ahead for tomorrow, or play some music, or there are apps that will help you relax, like launch this kind of an app. And so basically, like it doing things that will help you get into a calmer, sort of more receptive state for going to sleep. And then in the morning, when it wakes you up, um, it kind of does it not in the way that you have like a big blaring alarm, but I have to say, if you have your sound turned on your watch, the developers and the musicians at Apple came up with like a few different ringtones that aren't even ringtones. Like they're just music, and it's music. It plays really softly, and the watch on your wrist, it like lightly taps your wrist, and then as it goes on, it taps a little bit harder, and so it draws you out of sleep rather than sort of scaring you out of sleep, which is what a lot of alarms do. And like it's this weird, pleasant wake up experience that I didn't expect. And if you don't have your sound on, it'll still just do the tapping, which I found to be great because my wife does not really like having alarms. And especially like if I have to get up at like an earlier time, she doesn't really want to wake up to my alarm because then she can't get back to sleep. And so having the watch on overnight and having it just sort of tap me to wake me up has been surprisingly effective. And then I wake up and it pops a little screen that says, "Oh, you're awake, and here's how much you slept last night, and here's the weather for today." And like it's just this weirdly positive experience that kind of reinforces like, okay, well, now you've slept. And it also has the diagnostics, and so at a glance you can see it'll say the level of sleep that you've had recently is decreasing. And I look at that and say, yes, I've had lots of deadlines. But it's what's a good way to put it? Like it's not heavy-handed. And I think they could have totally done this in a heavy-handed way, and it's not. It's like little nudges about, okay, well, if you do this, maybe you'll get on a better schedule, and it looks like maybe you've been getting the right amount of sleep. Good job. Or perhaps you should think about going to bed, earlier. That kind of stuff. So I'm actually a little surprised that I'm just going on and on so much about the sleep feature, but I don't know. It's well done.
Well, that's one of the reasons I ask about a favorite new feature or capability, because I saw the sleep thing. It's like, yeah, okay, the sleep thing. One of these days I'll get around to trying it. Now you
Right.
make me want to go tonight and say, and I got to ask Jeff before I forget. Am I setting that
Yes.
alarm within the sleep app?
Yes, yeah. So
Okay.
there's a sleep app, and it'll basically ask you. There's a little setup process that it starts with, and then it asks like, how many hours of sleep do you want per night, and what time do you want to go to bed, or what time do you want to wake up? And then it kind of does that calculation from there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's exactly why, because you're more likely to wax wax not poetic, I guess, but yeah, about what some of the favorite features are. There's so many features, and that's why after a while you have to skip over something. But now
Yeah,
you have me intrigued about the sleep. So okay, I got to go
yeah.
set that up tonight.
It is absolutely something that I thought I came into it going, okay, I'm going to do my duty and I'm going to wear my watch at night, because before I've always just charged the watch at night. I'm going to wear it at night, build up some data so I have something to write about, and then I'll probably forget about it in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to stick with it. And actually, with the newer watches, the big concern I think for people who use any kind of a sleep feature is, well, I'm going to have it on all night. So, isn't that going to totally drain the battery, or am I going to find myself in the middle of the next day with no battery? And one of the things about the when it's in the sleep mode, it's a low power mode. The screen will not turn on unless you specifically tap it, and when it does, it's just like big numbers. So it's not loading your face, your watch face. It's not loading all your complications. To do that, like if you want to get to all that, it makes you turn the digital crown to kind of basically open it up. So the idea is, okay, yes, you're a little bit awake, you want to look at your watch, we'll let you do that. But maybe that's too much of a distraction. And I can totally see somebody who's like kind of half awake trying to like, oh, like I need to reflexively check something on my watch, and realizing, oh no, but I have to turn the thing and forget it. I'm just going to go back to sleep, which is the whole point, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so, and it does that on the phone screen too. It basically like gives you another barrier to getting into your phone, which for a lot of people, if you wake up in the middle of the night, you grab your phone, maybe reflexively, you start looking at stuff, and then suddenly your brain's spun up, and that doesn't help at all.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, you just gave me homework for tonight. What's your next feature that you're going to give me homework about?
My homework is to sleep. That's good homework, right?
Well, yeah, but I'm like you. I have deadlines and things to do, and
yeah. Well,
today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Linode. You can build it on Linode. Get started today with $100 in free credit for MacVoices listeners and viewers at linode.com/MacVoices. So you need a website, your first website, a new website, or another website. Go to linode.com no matter which of those descriptions apply. Or maybe you need hosted services, or a server to collect and work with big data, or a gaming server, or a container, or an e-commerce platform. It doesn't matter. Linode's Linux virtual machines are your answer. Develop, deploy, and scale your modern applications faster and easier. Linode makes it easy with a host of one-click options for many of the most popular servers. Or build your own. Either way, you get Linode's Cloud Manager to create and manage permissions, services, and your account. Need a little help? Linode is there 24/7, 365 with no handoffs, no tiers, just the help you need when you need it. There's a whole lot more to Linode, and you can get started with $100 credit when you visit linode.com/MacVoices and click the Create Free Account button. Again, MacVoices listeners and viewers get $100 credit at linode.com/MacVoices. That's linode.com/MacVoices. Get started right now. Thanks to Linode for their support of MacVoices.
So actually, tied into this a little bit, and when they made this announcement, this was something that I was excited about. There's a new thing called Family Setup, and the thing about the Apple Watch up until watchOS 7 is that if you're going to have an Apple Watch, it has to pair with an iPhone, and it's not like you can, even though the Apple Watch now has like its own app store and you can have a cellular watch that doesn't need an iPhone to connect to the internet, like you still have to have that initial pairing of watch to phone, and it has to be like a one-to-one thing. Now, you can have multiple watches paired with one phone, and that's actually where some of the sleep stuff comes in. It turns out if you have, like, let's say you have an old Series 3 that you're not using, and you don't want to have to deal with like trying to charge your Series 6 or Series 5 watch during the day, you set up the watch app so that it knows about both of your watches. So when you go to bed, you take off your Series 6 watch and you put it in its charger, and you put on your nighttime watch, basically your Series 3, your old one, because it will automatically kind of switch over your identity. So all of your activity information, your calendars, like all that stuff just seamlessly clicks over, and then you use that to record your sleep, and then you switch again in the morning, and then you don't have to worry about charging during the day. So kind of building on that capability, that's been in watchOS for I want to say 2 revisions, maybe watchOS 4. Anyway, it's been there. So they sort of use that as a framework to do family setup, because the problem that this solves or attempts to solve is, what if you have somebody in your family who doesn't have a phone? What if you have a child and you want to have the connectivity of being able to, either text quickly or call quickly. You want them to, maybe have some way to call emergency services if needed. And as a parent, you want to be able to know where they are. And so it can be used in that way. But you may not want to give your 6-year-old a phone for various reasons. So what Family Setup does is Family Setup lets you basically set up another watch for a family member, somebody who's already in your iCloud family sharing unit. And so you get a lot of those advantages without having to then specifically set up another phone and have that for them. Now, there's some caveats to it. A big caveat is that the watch that they have has to be a cellular model. And it has to be a Series 4 or later because of the cellular connection. So, it has to be able to connect to the internet at any time when it's away from your home network. And so, if you're like, oh, I'm just going to get a Series 6 for my daughter and she'll wear that, well, that's great. But, you're going to have to get the cellular model, which increases the cost. You're going to have to get a cellular, what's the word? You have to get a cellular
data plan.
A data plan. Yes, thank you. I was going to say connection. That's not right. So like that watch has to have a data plan. So that's going to be at least $10 added to your cellular bill. And then the other problem is that a lot of the kind of the star features don't work on family plan or managed watches. So, for example, like the new blood oxygen sensor doesn't work, the ECG doesn't work. You can't listen to podcasts. There's kind of a list of 5 or 6 things that it won't do. I think mostly because of those are things that really need to interact with a phone, like one specific phone. So I like the Family Setup idea, but if you're going to do it, go find a used Series 4 or something, so you're not spending a whole lot of money for features that you're not going to actually use.
I don't want to split hairs, but I want to make sure that I get this question answered.
Yeah.
So if I give the kid the Series 4 watch, I don't have kids, folks. So, but in theory, if I give the kid
some random kid a Series 4 watch,
yeah, here, no, I'm not going to do what I was going to do.
No.
If I give that kid the Series 4 and get that, obviously it has to be cellular. We'll talk about that in a minute. Get the data plan. They can still use that as a phone. I mean, it's just, I think, even though it's Family Setup, so you've bought them basically a cellular capable watch that does not have to have a phone in their presence to make that phone call. That's
correct.
Okay, good. I thought so.
Now there are some interesting restrictions, and actually, and I'm trying to recall exactly how they've implemented this. Like for example, you can set up contacts for them. So in their contacts or in their phone, maybe you just have your cell phone, your spouse's cell phone, grandparent's cell phone, so that the kid's not just making random calls to all their friends, right? So there's some control over that, and plus you also have like the screen time, those kinds of content blocking and like those kind of controls are also tie into this. But then there's also a new feature as part of this called school time, and school time lets you say, all right, even though this kid doesn't have a phone, they still might be tempted to check something or play with their phones or whatever during school. So you can say, all right, from the hours of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., or you can set up like blocks, like, from morning school hours, 9 to 12, and then 1 to 3. It goes into the school time mode. And it basically has this kind of garish, yellow, almost ugly looking watch face that basically makes it super easy for a teacher or somebody else to be able to see like whether the person is checking their watch, but they can't do anything with it. So they're basically locked out during those hours. Now they're not completely locked out. It has that similar layer like with the sleep app, where you can turn the digital crown and get access to the watch. But when you do that, it records that, and so the parent or whoever's running the account can look and see, at 3:45 or 2 o'clock, this was unlocked, and at 2:01 this was unlocked for 15 seconds, and at 2:03 it was unlocked, and then you get to have the conversation. You're like, so you're checking your watch a lot during school, are you? So it's we're talking about kids here, so it's not foolproof. I'm sure there's going to be some way to get around it, but it's performing the duty of here's a device that does a whole lot of stuff. It will keep track of their activity. They can do that kind of stuff, but it's not. It's trying to also minimize distraction and kind of be a good player in the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, and I mean, frankly, I would be a little bit disappointed if it locked the watch down completely, because in the event of emergencies or whatever, you want to have access to the capabilities of the watch, whichever one you have. But but on the other hand, kids need some of that. I got a little bit upset with some of the coverage that this got, Jeff, because they were so many people were complaining about it's got to be a Series 4 or later. You have to buy the cell plan. That's money, 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 money. What's Apple doing? And it's like this is not magic. I'm sorry, but your watch has to have the capabilities. I can't pick up this glass of water and make a phone call with it. It just doesn't work. It has to have the hardware, and you have to have the service with it. So I personally am not happy with the cell phone providers with what they try to tack on. But, at the end of the day, that may be pretty cheap insurance for your child in these crazy times that we live in. And we're not going to go off into social commentary. It's the way the world is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, we don't even have to jump into social commentary. I mean, I can totally, picture a thing where, school gets out early and the kid needs to be picked up, right? So, but I guess we're in social commentary in places where school is happening, right? But sometimes. So without this, if the kid has no other option, then they have to find a friend who can text somebody, or they need to go to find an adult, or like there's a web of things that they can do, or they can just get on their watch and text mom and say, hey, school got out early. I'm just sitting here. Can somebody come and pick me up? It doesn't even have to be big and nefarious. It just has to be, just that extra level of security for the kids and the parents. And this also applies, like, you might want to get a watch for maybe an elderly parent who, may not have any interest in using a phone, or maybe gets, confused by having a phone. But you want to be able to, at the very least, like, let's say you have somebody who, doesn't have very much mobility, or perhaps, has some form of dementia, perhaps. You give them a watch. You can see where they are. You can, tell them how to call for help if they need to, which is, if you just press and hold the side button for, I want to say it's 5 to 10 seconds, like it can either give you the option to call emergency services, or it will just do it, like that kind of stuff. And so you start thinking about those and you're like, all right, yes, I don't really want to spend an extra $10 plus the little taxes that the phone companies put on. I don't really want to do that and spend $300 for a watch. But ultimately, is that security worth the price? And in a lot of cases, I think it is. So, it's obviously something that you have to make a decision for yourself, but it gives you a lot more options rather than just say, all right, here's a phone. And I know people who, their parents, they have phones, they forget to charge them, or they just don't like using them, or they have problems, doing the PIN code or the Face ID. Like, there's just a whole bunch of different possibilities that, all right, well, maybe something that's just on your wrist, telling you the time, and it can do a bunch of other stuff, but also add that layer of security.
No, I agree completely. And I think that's when it comes to which watch are you going to buy and which are you going to make it a cellular or not, you have to start thinking about some of these things. And you're right. The very young, the very old, or somebody with special circumstances, it makes a huge amount of sense. And when you start annualizing it, it's not that bad. I mean, it seems like a lot. It feels like, oh my God, another subscription to pay. But
right.
But at the end of the day, no. If anything would happen, you're going to kick yourself for not spending that little bit of money. And I mean, it's almost got to the point now. I think of it sort of like with the health features. I know what I have a couple medications. I know what I pay for those. I know what one visit to the doctor costs me. And it's like, when you start to put it in those perspectives in the spectrum of medical expenses, it's like, this is some of the cheapest preventative that I can possibly get, this and vitamin C.
True. It's true.
So,
yeah.
Jeff Carlson will be back in the next edition of MacVoices to talk more about Take Control of Apple Watch 1.1. We go from the blood oxygen sensor to hand washing. Jeff has a few app picks for us and a whole lot more. That's next time on MacVoices. We'll see you then. And until then, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.